In January of 2009, Jane had what they call a seizure, and I wasn't there. I was actually in Miami at a food show, and I had to drive back quickly. She was able to get on her phone to call a doctor, her daughter actually, and she called EMS, and they knocked on the door, and she was able to get to the door and get her to the hospital. She stayed in there for about 4 weeks, and the first week she was there, they had evaluated that she had a disease called CIA, which is a seizures of the brain, and that what she had to do was to have to solidify her blood rather than thin it, and that she needed to change a number of things she was doing, what she was drinking, and the caffeine and sugars and all that kind of stuff. So we were just about to leave the hospital with the remedy and everything else, and all of a sudden she had a massive brain tumor seizure, and they had to put her immediately into an operation. Luckily she was in the hospital, and that probably was the only thing that probably really saved her life. And they gave her craniotomy, and I had asked the doctor, you know, what were the chances of her surviving, and he said, I've never had one survive. It's so massive. And in this particular case, because she was there, he was able to relieve it, which meant that there was some part of the brain that was still operational and working and whatever. We were in the hospital for 3 weeks after that. She could move her left eye, nothing else. They tubed her up. She was in intensive care for quite a while. And she was really doing no bodily functions. All the bodily functions were being done by the hospital, including breathing, and she was feeding and everything else. During the stay there, I had a couple of recommendations on what to do next, because the hospital really isn't equipped for bringing her back, or, you know, they'll make recommendations to put her in a nursing home and a lot of other things. And we felt that something needed to be more aggressive, that there needed to be a chance. The doctor was very surprised that she made it through the operation and was not sure what her long-term situation would be. And I had a couple of recommendations. We had our older and our youngest child review FINR, which is the recommendation, the local recommendation. We also looked at one in Wisconsin because that's where we lived. And the feeling was that the family wanted to be close to Jane, so it might be better to you know, have one there so everybody could see her. I think after they saw the place up in Wisconsin, which my son referred to as one flew over this cuckoo's nest, and FINR, which you know, is like paradise. I mean, it's a beautiful setting with you know, palm trees and sunshine. She loves sunshine. And we moved her from the hospital in a ambulance, and the rehabilitation people were able to get her walking. Of course, she's a fighter too, so that really helps that you have somebody that's fighting on the other side. But the people here were wonderful in that regard, and they got her to a point where she could walk and she could begin to eat again. It took her, oh, I think it wasn't until 2 months or month and a half before she left that she was actually eating baby food. One of the funniest things I remember is we have 6 kids together, and whenever we had the kids, we'd give them baby food, and you give them strained meats, and you'd have to hide it with the applesauce. It was always a really, you know, because nobody likes strained meats, you know. So I gave, what they did, the chef was here, made strained meats, and I gave it to her and realized I have to have some applesauce on top because she'd spit it out when she first started eating. So it's come a long way that way too. She fully eats, and we go to nice restaurants and everything else. So I don't. There's no question. I mean, you know, we think back about how wonderful the place was, but it's all about the people. I mean, it's a beautiful place to stay, which gives you the right attitude. It gives you the attitude of saying, you know, that you're comfortable and you're at peace and so forth. But the people are what really made it happen. She had not only regular therapists, but she had students, which I really like that part of the program, because they have interns that come in certain times of the year and work with them. She would spend time with people that would explain to her how to get dressed in the morning, how to put her clothes on with one hand, you know, from pants to shirts to bras and all that kind of stuff, and how to take a shower and how to be careful about how you move and so forth. So when you take the occupational, which was really re-educating her on how to do that, on the physical therapy, which is really to help her regain her strength and be able to walk, and then the speech, I remember she had a lady named Kim who was a speech therapist for her. And, you know, I always had hope that, you know, I'd get back and have long conversations with her. I do, but they're in our own language. So, but what was interesting is that speech therapy is not about speech only. It's about the breathing. It's about how to swallow again. I was amazed at how many times they went through therapy just to learn how to swallow and make sure you don't get something caught or aspirate. I was here the whole time with her. I lived in Bradenton, so I got to a point where I was pretty connected with all the stuff they were talking about and everything else. So they actually let Jane out, I think, about a month early because they figured I knew almost as much as some of the people did. But what they did in 6 months' time is remarkable, and of course what she did too, because she had a real desire to get back, return back.